I'm Cynthia Closkey. I'm here with my partner, Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
And we are here to talk about useful things in marketing, current trends, things that are interesting in marketing and communications in general. Sometimes we cast our net a little bit wider because when you think about trying to get messages out and communicate clearly, sometimes that's not about advertising, shock, but sometimes it's about communicating within a company or just even person to person. There's things that kind of apply across all of these different disciplines.
That's right.
How's the week been with you, Sarah?
Well, it doesn't feel like Friday. This holiday weekend has really thrown, or holiday Monday has thrown me for a loop. So I feel like I should have one more day that I don't have. But other than that, it's been good. How about you?
Same. I mean, it's time. What is time now? What's days? What are weeks? What I actually kind of base my mental calendar on is like deliveries of Blue Apron boxes. So got one coming today, so I know it's a weekend. So that's a thrill.
Yeah. The passage of time is fluid. So there's nothing really to market.
I have been talking with different, new customers and existing clients about like how everyone is adjusting to the work situation, both in terms of like the work that they're trying to do, and then also the teamwork aspect, which because we're always deeply interested in how people collaborate, how we work together. And it's interesting to see all the different approaches, and some people very cool with it. Other people seem like they're struggling.
Yeah. For us in particular, I know we could go remote. It's not a problem for us to go remote, and we can do all of our services remotely. But the biggest concern that I had was a lot of the magic, if you will, the secret sauce and some of the great ideas have come out of meetings where we're all physically in the same room, where we can whiteboard ideas and build on each other's ideas and read each other's, body language and all of that. And so, I think that pre-COVID, a lot of big, huge corporations took their remote workforces in-house because of that. They wanted people to physically be in the same space. And so that's been an interesting transition, and we've been working through it in a number of different ways. And I think trying and experimenting with different new things. But just the idea of being in the same physical space and what you lose by not,
Yeah, I mean, that's the classic business challenge is at what point do you take a thing in-house versus outsource it? In-house versus outsourcing. And a big reason for bringing things in-house is because it's going to be more efficient because you can talk more quickly. I think a lot of times what's really happening is that, maybe that's the initial idea, but in reality, people get almost a little bit lazy. Like you don't have to be quite as organized if you can just, go down the corner and talk to somebody, go down the hallway and talk to somebody, or, annoyingly poke your head over their cubicle wall or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And so working remotely kind of really pushes people to use different processes. And in some ways you lose a lot because you lose some of that. I can see your face on video, but there's a little tiny delay and you might get distracted or I might get distracted, my cat comes down, or there's family, there's children, there's other things that we can't control. I have birds outside the window here that are adorable to watch, but then all of a sudden they'll start chirping and distract everybody. So all of those things kind of feed into the challenges that we're facing, in addition to the other bigger emotional distractions of just uncertainty about our current world.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been like sort of skimming articles and seeing stats though, that for some companies are reporting that productivity is up in this remote environment, that when you maybe take out the commuting and the chit chat in the office, that, people can kind of just, efficiently get through all the work that they have to do.
It fits in with that model that people, that was sort of like a hot thing for a while. Tim Ferriss, I think, is the guy promoting it, this idea of a 4-hour work week. Like how much time really is wasted just standing around the water cooler? Yeah. On the other hand, some of that standing around the water cooler and getting to know people, like we have to work so hard to really create a culture and create a sense of trust between people. And that trust really creates the ability to do kinds of work that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise.
Right. Yeah. And how about throw in a brand new employee into the mix who never got to have that water cooler talk and is onboarding in a remote environment?
Right. We have one of those right now.
We do.
So actually, we've got two people. One is our intern Logan, who is a student at Pitt in the business school, business program. Go Pitt.
Pitt all over my wall.
H2P.
Yeah.
And so we had started the interviewing, and we'd already planned to do some of the interview process remotely, just because some of the candidates, including Logan, were actually doing the semester abroad. And so we did a lot of our interview process for students. By the way, I just want to actually give a shout out to the school there, the undergraduate students that we've had the opportunity to interview and meet. Very bright. What a great group of kids. I'm sorry. What a great group of young
adults,
young growing professionals. But it's interesting to talk to them. A lot of great experience that they've got there. So it's always a hard choice to figure out who we're going to bring into our little team. Then partway through, just looking through applications, all of a sudden the coronavirus lockdowns happened, and people who were abroad came back to the U.S. rather suddenly, had to have their programs cut short, and then we were going through our interview process, and then kind of had to factor in this aspect that not only were we going to have not any of that face-to-face in the interview, in the final rounds of the interview, but also we had to really be thoughtful about our onboarding. So we're always careful to have a good plan, but how are we going to have someone like shadow someone else, like watch how things are done so that they could learn?
Mm-hmm. Well, how did you do that?
Well, we did. We've been doing a lot of the sort of almost like a work with me type situation where we're fortunate to have a lot of great screen sharing tools that we use for helping our clients or seeing problems that they're encountering or training people remotely. And so we've planned in a lot of those pieces. And then as with our larger team, we have Kelly, our digital marketing manager, has a check-in each day when that Logan is on board, so that she can kind of coach and say what's going on, and just using all of our electronic tools to their fullest.
Right. Yeah. Well, that kind of goes towards some of the things that we've been implementing for the whole team to interface with each other and connect on a regular basis. So we have every day in the morning, first thing, what we call on deck, which we were doing in our communication channel Slack prior to the pandemic, and now we're doing it, over Google Meet. And so we get to see each other right there at the first of the day and talk through, what are our big priorities for the day. We don't go through our whole entire list. We just go through the top 2 things that we have to get done today, which we were doing before, and is always just helpful, I think, to, highlight what team members are working on. And, if you can offer clarification or help or anything like that, it's good to point that out. So then we were doing that every single day and seeing each other. And then on Friday's version of the On Deck, we do something fun, like a quiz, or we did a scavenger hunt. Today we showed a piece of art in our house and why, what it means to us, its backstory, if you will. So we're trying to, infuse some things that are different than what we would have done in the office, but, something similar to how we interacted. So that's been fun.
I feel like it's even I'm actually wondering, how can we take some of these things back, assuming we're going back to the office at some future time? Like, how can we bring some of this other things back? I want to be sensitive to, and I think we're still trying to be sensitive to, because we're doing all of this video connection within people's homes, like, how do we not let that feel intrusive? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So when we were first doing our little cribs, like tour of everybody's place, I think at first it was a little like, oh, I don't know if I want you to see
all the
you
things.
definitely can't see it today.
Yeah.
I'm going to need a week to do a cleanup. So there was a little bit of that, and I hope that people felt okay with it. It seemed like they did, but um, so we still want to kind of be cool with that. And I think people worldwide are more understanding of things like, you know, your kid coming by while you're in the middle of a meeting, or in my case, my cat's crawling all over me, or at the end of the day, drooling on me because they want it's dinner time, you know. So
yeah, I think that we are all in a more forgiving place with those types of interruptions. My dog comes in my office by himself, opens the door, and then I can hear everything outside, and then I close it, and then he leaves and he opens it again. Anyway, it's a constant battle on all of my conference calls where I have to get up for a second and close the door. So everyone is understanding of that. And I think we talked a little bit last week about just also marketing videos not needing to be as polished or refined, that, you know, because of the age of these video conference calls, there's a shared understanding that we don't have to, you know, polish things so much, that people are pretty understanding of it. And it's just, it maybe before it was a barrier into getting stuff out, and now it doesn't need to be. So I think that's a positive of this whole experience too.
I think so too. Yeah. We should take a second to just pause and remind folks that we have a lot of ideas and thoughts that we want to share, but we're also really anxious to take a minute or a couple minutes to answer any questions, whether it's about some of this stuff we're talking about here, remote work and remote collaboration. Because there's a couple tools I think we want to highlight for you, things that we've either been using a long time that have been helpful, and then also a couple that are newer to us that maybe have been around a little bit, but we're finding particularly helpful for brainstorming, for example, and also, you know, for communicating things that need to be more visual. So we'll talk about those in a second. But if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat here on YouTube. I'm looking at my other screen, so that's what that is. Or send them into officehours@shiftcollaborative.com. And that is in that address is in the description below the video. And I also, one other thing, we talked about hiring Logan, our intern, but just recently we hired a new full-time employee who is Sufyan, and any of our, in particular, our web clients are going to get to know Sufyan real well. Well, hopefully they'll get to know him well in a positive way, because he is keeping your websites updated and informing you of interesting things that are going on in the site. And he's also going to be the person who's first to respond whenever you write into help@shiftcollaborative.com for tech support or updates or anything like that. So Sufyan, we had to do the full interview process remotely. And we've still not met in person. We're not going to be meeting in person for some time.
Yeah.
But we're kind of you know, bringing him on board, and he's been doing some great things just in the short time he's been with us.
Yeah, it's definitely been a change, but I think that we have some good processes in place. Hopefully, would be interesting to talk to Logan and Sufyan about this onboarding experience, get a little debrief on what worked for them, and, you know, what maybe could be improved if we have to do it in the future, which, you know, some companies are potentially going to stick with this whole remote thing. Like, it's working for them. I think, didn't Twitter come out and say that they might not be going back to the office? I think
exactly. They said no one's ever going to be required to come back. So it might be that some people might choose to come back. Maybe, you know, okay. I might have misunderstood that, but I think that's what they said.
Yeah, I thought the CEO was just like, I don't want anybody to have to come back, or something to that effect. Sure. I could be misquoting him, but that's an interesting idea. And I think that if that happens and more companies, you know, don't have a lease anymore, don't have office space anymore, what's that going to do to the commercial real estate landscape? Could be very
definitely going to change that. It's going to have a lot of ripple through impacts to a lot of different parts of the world. There are a few software as a service companies in particular that have been completely remote for a long time. And I'm thinking here, I believe the folks that 37 Signals, who make Basecamp, they are a fully remote organization. And also Automatic, who's a company that focuses really on creating WordPress and is in charge of WordPress.com and certain other services that are associated with it. So WordPress.org is a larger organization, but Automatic does some commercial things within that space. And I think they've always been fully remote as well.
Yeah. Isn't Zappos, the shoe people, aren't they all remote too?
They might be. Certainly they must have a distribution warehouse, or
Well, yeah, that's
like
true.
those people have to go in.
Yeah. 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 I mean,
and they're owned by Amazon now, right?
Sure. I don't keep, doesn't Amazon own like everything? I don't know. I don't really keep up on it.
I feel like it, yeah.
Prior to coming to Shift, I worked at a company called A Place for Mom, and the sales force was 100% remote. All the hiring was 100% remote. And that was in, early 2000s, and they continue to operate that way. I mean, they do have a corporate office, and some people come in, but a lot of their folks, even pre-COVID, were working remotely. I think a lot of companies have figured this out and figured out that it works well for them. And I think it's just interesting now, all the companies looking at it and realizing like, oh, our sales force doesn't need to come to the office. Maybe we don't need, 50,000 square foot of office space. So it's interesting.
Yeah. And even if we are going back, we're going to need to be really reassessing the office space that we've got. Is it the right size for us? Is it too small? Because we need to put space between us.
Yeah.
Do we need to put up plexiglass barriers? Do they make any difference? Do we need to convince our commercial landlord to add all sorts of air filters or let us open our windows? Or I don't even know what.
Right. Yeah. There's going to be changes for sure.
Yeah. I had seen an article in the New Yorker earlier this week, and it got sent around on Twitter and Facebook a lot. Why remote work is hard and how it can be fixed. And it's an author, Cal Newport, who I actually have as one of his books. This one's Deep Work from 2016, I think. And I got this book because it promised to help you find success in a distracted world. And I have still not read it.
You're so distracted.
I am so distracted and so much in need of this. But I felt like the article that he wrote, which ties back to some of the themes of the book as I understand them, about why is it that we are so distracted, and then how is the current world continuing to make it hard for us to focus and to do the best kind of work that we want to do, even individually as well as in teams, but teams in particular. About this article is how do we work better together?
Mm-hmm. Is there an answer to that?
There's a lot of different things, and it seemed like one of the ones that was really a recurring thread is that you don't want to you need to communicate a lot, and you need to be a little bit forgiving. So you need to communicate and set expectations, even if it's to say, hey, I got your message, I can't respond right now, but I will be back to you. And again, these are just good professional business practices, but all the more important when you don't have a way to sort of see someone down the hall. So being extra attentive to those kind of issues. And then being understanding if someone, communicates to you in an email in a way that comes across as maybe a little bit harsh or something, being like, maybe they didn't get their coffee today, or their kid was shouting in their ear, or whatever it might be. So right. Those seemed like they were important details.
Yeah. I mean, communication is hard. Email communication can be challenging. Like you say, it's hard to really or trust the tone that's coming through. It could be a number of different things. I think the other thing that I've always tried to do is respond to people really quickly. And maybe now there's this expectation that because we're home and our computers are so close to us, we could respond at any time. And we're setting these expectations with people that we're going to get back to them at all hours. And we're not feeling like we're getting a break from our work. Maybe that's just me.
I've been doing it for most of this year, really trying hard to really disconnect over the weekend, for example, and to really take time off this past week during the holiday to you still kind of end up checking email maybe just a little bit to see if there's an emergency. And there were not a lot of emergencies, and it was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I could spend my time making focaccia or whatever it was that I
Did you make focaccia
that day?
That's
I
fun.
did make it. It was a very good focaccia. It was a no knead, minimum kneading, and it came out delicious. And I'm gonna make it again. I'll send you guys the recipe. Maybe I'll post that in the chat.
Yeah, definitely.
Thing afterwards.
I made banana bread like everyone else in the world making banana bread, but I had to make it. I had bananas, and I have another bunch of bananas, so I'm going to make it again this weekend too. Anyway, I digress.
You can make those banana pancakes that people are so fond of. Those like paleo pancakes with just bananas and
This reminds me of that Jack Johnson song about banana pancakes. Right. It's a good song.
Excellent. That's right. See, you can play a little Jack Johnson. Really nice Saturday morning for you there.
It is. It's totally. I recommend Jack Johnson.
Excellent. On the email subject, something else came up. There was a tweet that we saw that was, I think it was humorously meant. I know it was humorously meant. It was like, how many exclamation points do you put in an email? And we had a little bit of discussion internally. I think they were just kind of saying, how many emoji exclamation points do you put? It seems like people are trying to communicate. We talked about this, I think, last week or the week before.
Yeah.
People are trying to find ways to use emojis and punctuation and other things to have a richer kind of communication, even in the thinness of email. Do you personally have internal rules for yourself about how many punctuation marks to use and what range of them and so on?
Yeah, I feel in business communication, this does not apply to personal correspondence. But in business communication, I think one exclamation point per email is really about if it's even necessary. I'm like very sparingly use exclamation points. And I think that it's just, I don't know, email is just, to me, is about just getting, information across as succinctly as possible and not flowery language or, adding in things like emojis or exclamation points unless it really is called like I am really excited about something. And so, but frequently I'm just saying, hey, here's an answer to your question, or here's some information about this thing. Can you take a look at it? Like, it's not like we have a party today. Like, I don't know. It's just, I don't prescribe to a lot of exclamation points.
So we are different.
Oh my goodness.
Which I think people knew. But so two different situations I can think of where I don't tend to use emoji, and I talked about before how I feel like I don't always know what all the connotations of them, all of the secondary and other meanings. And to me, they still look a little goofy because I'm old. But I do use exclamation points more liberally perhaps than you do. I'll definitely use more than one in a single email, but I do have rules about them. So it's basically like one exclamation point per paragraph, even if it's like 3 paragraphs, each one is only going to get 1 exclamation point. Or if for some reason I needed to have 2, there would be a sentence in between that had none. Like I have a very complicated there's a very
algorithm
grammar.
Like an algorithm going there.
There's a lot. But so sometimes the cheerful thing, I'm trying not to use it necessarily in a passive aggressive way, but maybe to kind of over communicate the thought that I'm not mad about this, because I know that it is definitely, there's an article I was reading in Sloan Review that talks about how people tend to read an email in an angrier or a more negative way than the person who's sending it. Mm-hmm. People also tend to be a little bit more terse in an email and have fewer filters than they would in talking in person. So when you pile those two things upon each other, then you have the opportunity for there to be a real disconnect, and things can escalate. And we've all experienced this, where an email thread quickly gets angry and isn't needed.
Yeah, it's unintentional, and it's just confusion over that tone. Yeah, I mean, I think exclamation points can add a cheerful note to communication. I'm just always careful about it because I feel like for some reason I feel like I'll be taken less seriously.
Yeah.
If, I maybe am a little, have PS whatever, about it because I came from an industry, senior housing, and not only were there exclamation points, but there were color highlights and emojis, cat pictures in emails and email signatures, and it just drove me bananas. So I just maybe went the complete opposite direction. It was just going to be clear. I'm going to be concise. One thing that I do try to do that's not related to the exclamation point thing, but is related to the fact that, like you say, email is sort of, sometimes the quickest way to get information to somebody, but might not be the best mode of communicating something. So when I'm sharing information or asking for somebody to look and review or give me feedback, I always usually end with, hey, if it's easier, let's hop on a phone call and discuss this rather going back and forth in email. I'm basically just setting it up to say, I'm using email to get you this information, but we don't have to continue to use it to talk about it.
That's a great idea. Yeah,
and just making that really clear, because for many of our clients, just a 15-minute phone call can clear up all the questions that could have been, end up being 20 emails. So it's better to just hop on the phone.
Absolutely. There's a lot of times when the phone can be the right thing, or the phone call followed up with the email that confirms what was said.
Sure. That's another good one. Yeah.
Yeah. And also using video now that more people have this technology and are becoming comfortable with it. I feel like when a situation is tense, it can be helpful to see someone's face.
Yeah.
Remember that you're human.
Right. I do find in the larger calls, though, when you're presenting to a Zoom room of 10 people, it's hard to get a read on the mood and the vibe, compared to when you're in person, when your brain can easily scan people's facial expressions when you're in person. But when you're on a Zoom call, all these little windows, it's just really hard to see if someone, because typically it's not like, oh, that person over there hates what we're talking about. It's more like, I think that person has a question. I can tell that they have a question, and let me see if that's true or not. I don't think that's easy on Zoom, at least for me.
Well, I mean, people's faces are obviously much smaller. We can kind of see them, but the lighting may be uneven. Some people may have their camera, over here, and they're watching you on this screen, but they're
Right.
being shot from over here. There's so much inconsistency. So there's a lot that's that we can continue to get better at on that, for sure. What techniques can we recommend for if you have to communicate with a big group? I think there's a couple things we could maybe suggest. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot with it, so I'm giving you a second to think. But I mean, sometimes just even asking, making sure that we pause and say, can we have a quick, gesture up or down? Should we continue, or do we need to stop and talk about this? So really trying to get we don't want to go around the 20-person room and ask everybody for input, but we can maybe take quick votes and say, is there a part of this that we need to discuss?
Yeah, I think the other thing is maybe breaking up, if you're doing a slide presentation or whatever, breaking it up and giving time to stop and pause for the affirmation, or if someone has a question, and then I think when you do those pauses, if there is not the interaction that you were hoping for, I think calling on maybe a decision maker, or somebody that might have something for the good of the order. It's harder to speak up, I think, on Zoom, because you're afraid that you're going to talk over somebody. So I think as a host, you really do need to be very cognizant of that, and it's even in introductions, like you need to prompt, okay, Cynthia, you or then you're introducing them, but you need to do that now so that people aren't talking over each other. So I think when you pause, if you're not getting any feedback, you have to call on people.
Yes, absolutely. And then I think another piece, we have been doing this for some time, having a shared space online, in addition to the video piece of it, but having shared spaces online where we are like writing down what we're talking about. So it's a live agenda as opposed to a static PDF or something, which we've been doing for a long time with Google Docs.
Yep.
Those kind of things can help. I mean, among the things that I know we miss about our office, in addition to, you know, the beautiful light, great big windows, and the neighborhood there in East Liberty. One of the two things that we really miss are whiteboards, where we have a chance to jump up and all kind of work together in a shared space. And our Post-it notes with Sharpies, where we can stick things out. Look at how sad you look.
I know, I miss those.
Where we can brainstorm very quickly. We've got a whole bunch of different workshopping and brainstorming techniques for surfacing a lot of great ideas quickly, building upon them, and then also then sorting and narrowing them down, or you know, using other kind of visuals that that are fun. And so the Google Docs or shared documents helps a lot, but it's very much still a document that goes this, and that.
Linearly, yeah.
So one of the things that we have started using lately has been this tool called Mural. I think I can share this on the screen here. Finding the right window. And so this is just their homepage. I'm not showing you a real client tool, but they quite simply are a digital workspace for visual collaboration. So a workspace can look like this. It actually can be quite large. And then as people move around on it, you can see who they are and what they're doing. And then these little guys are just like our little beloved sticky notes, and people can put comments. And so you can kind of, you know, create some of that collaboration, working together on a thing that is way freer than a linear document, and allows for all kinds of grouping. So we have been using this recently for card sorting, which is a way that we use to like figure out what's the organization of information in a website, for example, or organization of information in any of a kind of a whole bunch of communication things. So we used it for organizing information, and then for communicating back to our ideas about how to create the navigation, what goes to what, and kind of resolve those ideas, comment on them, give them some richness. And then even further, we're looking at them as ways to storyboard, whether it's storyboarding an animation that we're working for a client advertisement, or to kind of think about what is the customer journey. So we've already beginning to find it super duper useful. Not getting commission or anything from telling you guys about this, but mural.co, they've got a really interesting solution.
Now, having used this in a current project, how would you compare the time trajectory on our in-person card sorting and narrowing and this digital one, which I believe that we were using it internally, but also the client was involved too. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, you know, the learning curve on this was so fast because the interface is really quite well designed. And so it's very quick to learn to create little notes, change the color to add text to them, and drag them around. So the client was able to kind of pick it up really quickly, as did our whole team. So I would say those things were really great. There is something about being able to like draw on something, you know, where you can be a little bit messy, that there's a value of that we do still miss. So it's not perfect, but it is pretty good facsimile, and it has some advantages of, as you can see, being able, like everybody being able to do a sort at once, whereas in a real whiteboard, like we have to like jostle each other in a very non-social distancing way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was just wondering if it's in a way it sped things up from our normal process.
I don't know if it would. I would say there were parts that were faster and parts that weren't faster. So how's that for a non-answer?
It's a great non-answer. I can understand it though.
So, and again, we'll take a second to remind the folks, thanks for watching. We've got a couple people online with us. And if anyone's got a question or an idea that they want to either share, or another tool that they have found and have found useful, we'd love to learn ourselves a little bit about what else is out there. I'm very much a tools geek and love to learn new things. So always looking for great new solutions.
Yeah, we'd love for people to share and ask questions. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing this, to answer questions.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a question. What is your favorite WordPress editor?
Okay, I don't know if that's as hot as sort of like, two spaces after a period, but it's possibly a contentious thing. So for anyone who's not familiar with WordPress, it's a content management system. It's a thing that you build a website in. WordPress is a well-established one. I think they maybe something ridiculous like over 40% of the websites on the internet are built in WordPress. So it's really impressive. So there's a lot of different ways to build a page in WordPress. There's a lot of different tools so that it doesn't just look like something that you wrote in Word in one single column and then you copied and pasted it in and it's just one column. We want to do more interesting layouts, and we want it to be able to go from a desktop page where you've got all of this width to a phone where you've got a very tiny width. And so good page building tools will allow you to create very sophisticated layouts with interesting web gadgets pretty easily, be consistent from page to page, and also adjust quickly when you're on a different size device or different size screen. Some that we've used, there's a whole bunch of them, but they all have their ups and downs. Recently, when I say recently, it's the end of 2018, WordPress itself launched something they'd been working on for a long time, which was a built-in page building editor that was much more sophisticated than what they had before. And that was called Gutenberg. After, I don't know what Gutenberg's first name, but he's the guy that invented the printing press. And WordPress, you get the idea that there's a whole idea of publishing here. So the Gutenberg editor is a radical departure from what was in WordPress before. And it attempts to create different layouts. And I have been finding it very interesting. So I'm going to say that I like that one a lot. And I'm happy to tell you why. I have a lot of reasons. But what do you like, Sarah? What's your favorite right now?
Yeah. So the one that I've used the most is Visual Bakery, which used to be called something else. Or maybe that's...
I think it used to be called Visual Bakery or something like that, but now it's called Page Builder.
Really? Or WP Bakery?
No,
anyway.
what? Yeah. All right.
I feel like there's still bakery in there. Like baking up the content and putting it into columns. Anyway.
Visual Composer is what it used to be called.
Visual Composer. Now it's Visual Bakery. Maybe.
WP Bakery.
WP Bakery. Okay. Well, now that we cleared that up, non-clearing up,
right.
That is the one that I've used the most and that I am most comfortable with. And it has its quirks and I think issues, and you kind of have to know that to do it well. But I'm the most comfortable with it, and so change is hard. I find Gutenberg to be challenging, but that's just because I've used the other one so much. But recently, the two other ones that I've used with clients are Elementor, and they have a free version and a paid version, and Divi as well, which is from Elegant Themes. And the thing that's, I think, nice about Divi, it's kind of similar to WP Bakery. It has a lot of templates that you can load in and build off of and customize, which, if for a novice who isn't a trained website designer, that can be very helpful.
For sure. And also with those templates that are in there, you've still got the sort of frame and styling and things that the theme or the website template makes consistent throughout the site. Mm-hmm. But with these other editors, you can create little templates that go for particular pages. They're starting points that then you can adjust a lot. And so they kind of solve this problem that so many people who get a website built for them that they chafe at, which is that the website developer often will kind of lock down parts of pages maybe not purposefully, sometimes purposely, to kind of keep some consistency. So you will always have a block over here in this part of the page. I'm trying to do this right. There's always a block here on this part of the page that you have to fill with a menu, and there's always a picture here. Well, what if I don't want to put a picture there? What if I want to put a picture somewhere else? How can I do that in a way that is consistent across the site, but so it looks good, it looks professional, doesn't look like the thing that you talked about with emails where there's like funny fonts and weird colors and textured backgrounds. So we want to keep away the things that look random, but still have the flexibility to create some layout that suits the content of that you're trying to present.
Yep.
So those tools I think are great, and particularly, people don't want to learn how to use an editor. They just want to use it. They just want to put their content in and do their real work. So I think there's a lot to be said for those tools. The challenge, there are a couple challenges of them. One is that because they don't know what all someone's going to want to do with them, they put in every possible kind of tool, and those tend to require a bunch of scripts and other kinds of code, which means that now every page has all of this extra code that you didn't need, and so that slows the page down. And slowing the page down makes it less useful for someone to visit the page, and it makes Google in particular make you rank lower, make that page rank lower in search results. So instead of being the top result, maybe you're on the third page of results. So that, to me, that performance problem is a very significant problem.
I agree. I wish that all of the things that Divi and Elementor and WP Bakery could figure that out.
Yeah, and some of them do, and some of them you can turn off, like, let's say you're never going to use, I don't know, an accordion, which is one of those things where like frequently asked questions have it, where you click on a thing and something else rolls out. Maybe you're not using that. So you can turn it off at the site level, and that'll lighten the load a little. So they have some things, but Gutenberg, because it's built into WordPress, is meant to be a whole lot lighter performance wise, so it'll be faster. And that, to me, like I say, is just really super compelling.
Now, do you feel like you can do all the things that you can, if you aren't you with web development and design background, but you're the client who wants to create a new page after we've trained the client to do that, do you feel like Gutenberg is intuitive?
There are parts of it that are less intuitive to me than, for example, some of the other plugins that you talked about, Page Builder, but I also, like you, have been using those other plugins for a lot longer. And so I, as a person who's experienced a lot of things, have to change my thinking just for that one site. But someone who's brand new, they don't have all that baggage. And so I think it could be okay for them. The layout of it and the look of it is, in many ways, it's almost like too clean. And I feel like they could put a couple more things in there to make it easier. I recently discovered a thing that, like, I'd have to show you on the page, but where you can actually, they have a little demo of Gutenberg here that I had found earlier. And if you're not used to editing websites, this is not going to look like much to you, but the point is it's super, super duper light. Like, this is the actual editor. It looks like the page itself. Like, I can just go and make a new paragraph, and start typing a bunch of things, and it looks the way it's going to look on the site, which is nice. Look, they've got columns. Those columns look cool. But what if I wanted to change the arrangement of them and make them not be so wide? How would I do that? So it's got all of these different tools that you do have to learn how to use. But once you learn them, there's again, consistency from one site to the next, and that's all good. What was hard though is, I'm in this column, but I want to affect the whole row. How do I do that? And I was having a hard time with it. You have to click exactly at the right pixel to do the thing. And then I found down here at the bottom, it's telling me, do I want to make edits that apply to the whole document? Well, then click on that thing and it'll let me. So it turned out that I was just missing out on this one really super important tool, which is this little bar down here. So I don't know. I'm excited to keep learning about it. I feel like it's got a lot of capabilities, and I am calmed by how simple the layout is,
Yes. And I am sure, to your point, a lot of our clients would prefer an uncluttered, simple interface for sure. And I think much like anything, once you learn a tool and you get comfortable with it, it's hard to change to something else. So that's my barrier at the moment. I have tried it and have purposely turned it off on sites. I cannot have it interfering because it's just not, I don't feel I can do the things I need to do quickly.
Right. Well, I think, again, this is one of these situations where we need to find ways to help ourselves, do the deep work, stop and have a moment where you can really focus on learning it and not feel pressured to turn something around. So it's hard. Life's not easy.
It is. That time to not be pressured by the deadline would be nice.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to ask you something. So a thing that I had come up to speed a bit more on, and that I know has a whole bunch of new features now, is the tool that we use for reporting back to our clients, particularly on the digital performance of their websites and of campaigns that we do. And that is Data Studio, which is a Google product. But you've been using Data Studio for, I think, longer than I have.
Yes, a little bit longer, maybe. Yeah. Is it data or data? Sorry, this is a total tangent. You said.
I don't know, GIF or GIF. I don't know.
Okay. I think you said Data Studio and I say Data Studio.
I think I watched a lot of Star Trek Next Generation.
Okay.
And he's Data.
I get it. Yeah. Okay. So back to the matter at hand. Yes, we use Data Studio, and it is a Google product. And so a lot of our clients are using Google products for their campaigns and for their analytics. And so it's a nice, easy tool to integrate with all of those products, but you can connect other data sources to it. So if you're running a paid campaign in Bing or in Facebook or really any platform, you can hook that data in as well. So, and then there might be some pieces of data that, you want to look at that are on a spreadsheet, and you can hook that in too and just update the spreadsheet, and then it'll update the report in real time. But yeah, we like it because similar to the WordPress editors that we were just talking about, page builders, it is a drag and drop situation. It has a pretty easy user interface. We can quickly spin up a new graph on a new page if there's something that the client wants to look at that's maybe a new section on their website or a new campaign. We're not spending as much time building the thing and really spending more time on analyzing the data, which is the most important piece of it. So yeah, we use it with clients to report on website performance, organic website performance, behavior on the website of organic traffic versus paid traffic. We also use it to look at the paid campaigns. We use it to look at social media performance, organic and paid. So email marketing, all of the things that a client is doing to gain attention, we can hook it into this report. Oh, you're on mute.
I think one thing that first of all, people should know that it's like all the other data Google products, it's a free thing that if you have a Google account, like a Gmail account, like you can be using this to do things for your work or for your life or all kinds of data. Like you say, sometimes there's information that you're trying to aggregate from a bunch of places. Maybe it would be able to help you kind of figure out how that works. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's a best fit for looking at a combination of your what's going on with your website and what's going on with your Facebook and what's going on with your anything else, and seeing all that stuff in one place rather than hopping from one to the next. Being able to compare charts, to compare, for example, an ad campaign you're doing on Facebook versus an ad campaign you're doing on Google. Like to be able to see those ratios and conversion rates and all of those things. Sorry for the jargon, but to be able to see all of that together can be super helpful for coming up with those insights, for doing that analysis like you talked about. So I think it's a really super tool, and I think it's not as well known as it maybe ought to be.
Yeah, I think that from what I can see in some of the different, groups that I'm in, is that a lot of marketers are now using it because of its flexibility and also ease with which you can create branded pieces. You can have the report. And this is just a little thing. Maybe many people wouldn't care, but you can have the client's colors and brand, visualized on the page, which just I think is just a nice touch, and it's super easy to do. But yeah, I think the marketing world, whenever I see a poll of what analytics tool and what reporting dashboards are people using, Data Studio is always up there. At least it has been for the last year or two. And we tried a lot of stuff before we got to Data Studio, and
we did. It's tough because when you're bringing information from a bunch of different sources, that's the kind of stuff that's like magic behind the scenes that I understand in concept what's having to happen, but that's way above my pay grade. And I'm really impressed that there are these tools like this that can hook into different APIs, application programming interfaces, and pull the data from the right place, and then have a very nice set. Data Studio has a great set of ways to display information,
right?
And to help you kind of filter out stuff. So you can, like, we have one client who the name of the client is also similar to a football term. So certain times of year, like we want to be able to filter out traffic on certain, Sundays so that it doesn't pollute the other information that we've got. And so it allows us to do that, which is terrific, and allows us to really get at the underlying things that we might otherwise lose.
Yeah, you can filter out data. You can blend data sources, which is, if you were looking at, if you were running a video ad, let's say on YouTube and in Facebook and in, maybe another platform, and it's the same video, you can have that all the performance of the different platforms of that same video come into one chart. And the set of charts that are available just default before you even start customizing them, visualize that data in a way that, takes the effort out of it and thinking like, oh, that's not the right kind of chart, or I need a pie chart, or, it just gives you a lot of choices and flexibility with it. I think the biggest challenge, regardless of what platform you're using for your reporting dashboard, is just trying to figure out what are the things we want to look at on an ongoing basis. What is going to be the most, important information for decision making, for, budgeting, determining what content we put on the website next, all of that, trying to figure out what to look at on a regular basis, is the biggest challenge. But once you figure that out and figure out, okay, this is the template, and maybe you add stuff on from time to time as you do short-term campaigns and whatnot. Once you get that, it's really, really great. It's really helpful.
It always does come back to this, like, what's important? What are your goals? Like, what are you trying to do?
Business objectives. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we can send a ton of traffic to your website, but if they're the wrong people, then what, we wasted a bunch of time and money and energy. We want to send the right people, and we have to figure that out. We need to constantly tune it. And that means thinking in a bigger picture way. This is our favorite thing to do.
Yeah. I think I try to push myself and our team. There are some basic, if someone came to us and we're like, oh, could you, generate a website performance report for us? Just put your standard default things in there. We can do that. Absolutely. No problem. We can look at your total number of users, your percentage of new users, the cities they're coming from, the devices they're using, the bounce rate, the page, like there's just, and I know I'm throwing a lot of jargon out there, but there are standard metrics that you can log into Google Analytics and see. But that's not, what does that really truly tell you? So I really try to push ourselves to, put together charts and graphs that glean positive, impactful information. So just as an example, bounce rate is something that, we pay attention to, and a lot of folks pay attention to the site average of the bounce rate, which is not helpful and not useful, especially because if you're running paid campaigns and you're sending traffic to outside new traffic to a page, you actually don't want them to visit any other sites. And what the bounce rate looks at is somebody that comes into your site and leaves from that same page and visits no other page. Well, all that page.
Yeah, so I was going to say, maybe we need to just take a second to say bounce rate means it is like a bounce. It's like touch the site and then bounce away.
Right. Doesn't matter which page they come in. If they visit no other pages, that's a bounce. And so if you have a paid campaign running, chances are the bounce rate on those pages are extremely high. And that's okay, because, you want them to come, maybe fill out a form and leave, or come see your phone number and call. So you're going to have a high rate. And then that brings your overall rate up for the site. So it's more important to look at bounce rate by your top pages, and see, is there, outside of our paid campaigns, is there a page that people are getting to, but then it's not really encouraging them to go further into the site? So that seems like a something we could fix, just as an example.
Yeah, so it's digging past those initial kind of first couple pieces of data that you've got to figure out, to put them in context, to put the data in context, and then determine, is this something that's okay? Is this something that needs to be improved? Is this something we should watch?
Yeah. I think the other good thing about any kind of reporting is that it gives you, especially if you're doing it over a series of months, you can look month over month and year over year. And if you're in a business that has seasonality to it, you can look at that holistically and say, okay, how is this down period? These 3 months are our down season in 2020. How is that different from the same time period in 2019? What happened? What changed? What was good? What was bad? What do we need to do so that we can have a different outcome in the 2021 or whatever it is. So it gives you that historical comparison. And that I think is very useful too.
Someone asked me today, are we seeing trends? Are we seeing any change in traffic? Like people are spending more time on websites, less time on websites. And I wish that there was a single answer for that. And I don't think there is. I don't think, but I'm interested to know if you're seeing it a little differently. Like we do have the sense that people are visiting social websites a lot more. But other websites, it depends on whether they need to be there, whether they need to go there. Do they have information that's going to help them solve a problem or answer a question? And so it's people, just because people are spending more time online doesn't mean they're spending more time evenly on every website.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's going to vary by industry and, by what you have on the website, how often you're changing it, what you're doing to optimize for this current circumstance. Like if you all of a sudden, if you're a yoga studio and all of a sudden you're live streaming yoga right from your website, you might be getting a lot more traffic than you were before. But the things that I think we have noticed with perhaps our paid campaigns is that people are converting at different times because the workday is stretched. And if we're targeting an audience that, is working from home now, their search behavior has changed. So the time of day has changed, and, our bid adjustments on pre-COVID have needed to shift since everyone's working from home, and some people are having to take care of children for 2 hours in the middle of the day, which might have been our crucial time to get conversions over the lunch break or something like that when people are doing research. I'm just being very broad, not a specific type of audience, or product, but it's just, you have to look at that data and make those changes. We are always looking at campaigns on a regular basis, but now instead of reporting monthly, we're reporting weekly to see if we can capitalize on any changes that we're seeing in search terms or trends or time of day, or making sure that we catch that right away versus waiting.
This seems like, so we're coming to the end of our hour. This seems like there's a lot here we can talk more about. So let me take a moment to remind folks that we, in addition to doing these office hours chats every Friday, we also are creating some longer videos that kind of dig into individual topics in more detail. So kind of thinking two things. One is we can maybe talk next week some more about like trends and things and how we are helping clients understand their data differently. And we also could maybe do a deeper dive video on some of the trends.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think maybe there's some interest in a whole, setting up data studio kind of a video.
For sure. Well, let's wrap it up because I think we're at the end. Thanks everyone for tuning in to Office Hours, Shift Office Hours. I'm Cynthia, that's Sarah. I don't know which way she is. And if you have more questions for us, send them along and we'll try and get to them next week. And we look forward to catching you online sometime soon.
Bye, everyone.